100 days in office for a second non-consecutive term. President Donald Trump and his administration are going to be patting themselves on the back for things that they say are promises made, promises kept. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning as we break things down for you to get your day started. Don't forget the podcast, Uninterrupted, for the live show. You can also find news segments and clips at the Center Square here on YouTube. So let's hear what some of the White House had to say yesterday. Press secretary took to the podium at the White House and talked about President Donald Trump's first 100 days in office.
As you know, this week marks the first 100 days of the Trump presidency. And President Trump's first 100 days have undoubtedly been the most monumental and historic of any administration in American history. President Trump has already delivered on hundreds of promises he made to the American people, and we will continue to talk about all of them throughout this week. Tomorrow, I will host a press briefing at this same time, bright and early again, to highlight the Trump administration's economic accomplishments with our Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. And tomorrow night, President Trump will travel to Michigan to discuss all that he has achieved on behalf of the American people. On Wednesday, the president will host an open press cabinet meeting where each cabinet member will discuss their success thus far and their plans for the future. Today, we kick off 100-day week with a focus on the president's historic effort to secure our southern border.
So they talked about the efforts underway, and as you saw next to Catherine Leavitt, the border czar, Tom Homan, and he laid out some of the differences between what the Biden administration was doing with the border and what the new Trump administration is doing.
Under the Biden administration, we averaged over 11,000 many days, over 12,000, even some days 15,000 illegal entrants in the United States. 15,000. You know what the number was last 24 hours? 178. 15,000 to 178. Unprecedented success.
Now, this really kind of flies in the face of what we heard Democrats say when they were asked about the border situation during the Biden administration, with the millions of people that have come across during the Biden administration. And the response from Democrats was, we need comprehensive immigration reform, and we need laws in place to secure the border. Well, as you heard with Trump during his address to a joint session of Congress earlier this year after he took office, he said it wasn't new laws that were needed, it was just a new president, because the border has been essentially shut off. Of course, there's still goods going back and forth and legal back and forth, but when it comes to illegal border crossings, that's essentially dropped off entirely, as you just heard those statistics. But you still have Democrats talking about the need for comprehensive immigration reform. And they seem to be focusing more on the likes of the Dreamers, the deferred action for migrant arrivals, children arrivals. You've got that push has continued, even outgoing U.S. Senator Dick Durbin making that a key point in some of his exit speeches. But clearly, it was a new administration that brought about border security. Here's more of Catherine Leavitt, the White House press secretary, talking about the accomplishments under the Trump administration.
This is the first of its kind multi-agency immigration enforcement operation coordinated by ICE with federal partners. And this multi-day operation has so far resulted in nearly 800 illegal aliens apprehended in 4 days, including MS-13, murderers, rapists, drug traffickers, and human rights abuses. So, safe to say, President Trump made a promise to all of you, your audiences, and the American public to secure our nation's borders. He has overwhelmingly delivered on that promise. And you will see the legacy media has nitpicked stories to try to drum up sympathy for people who broke our nation's laws. This White House has sympathy for American citizens, for law-abiding families who are doing what's right, who came here the right way. That includes legal immigrants who have come to this country, paid their dues, waited their turn, and are now being cheated and ripped off were being cheated and ripped off by the previous administration. We are putting Americans first every day, and we applaud the ICE agents and Border Patrol agents who are on the ground doing this important work.
So the White House press secretary just laying out the border issues and the cooperation with other officials across the country. What was it in Colorado? They raided a illegal nightclub with alleged illegal aliens in there. Down in Florida, they arrested, like 100 some odd people? No, was it 800 people in Florida? Either way, they're working, obviously with those who would cooperate, but those who aren't cooperating, they could face loss of federal funding, especially those sanctuary cities like Chicago, sanctuary states like Illinois. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker obviously is an ardent opponent of President Donald Trump. Here's some of a speech he shared on his social media about standing up against the Trump administration.
Time for us to be done with optimism about their motives or their objectives. Time to stop wondering if you can trust the nuclear codes to people who don't know how to organize a group chat. It's time to stop ignoring the hypocrisy and wearing a big gold cross while announcing the defunding of children's cancer research. And time to stop thinking that we can reason or negotiate with a madman. Time to stop apologizing when we were not wrong. Time to stop surrendering when we need to fight. Our small businesses don't deserve to be bankrupted by unsustainable tariffs. Our retirees don't deserve to be left destitute by a Social Security Administration decimated by Elon Musk. Our citizens don't deserve to lose health care coverage because Republicans want to hand a tax cut to billionaires. Our federal workers don't deserve to have, a 19-year-old Doge bro called Big Balls destroy their careers. Autistic kids and adults who are loving contributors to our society don't deserve to be stigmatized by a weird Nepo baby who once stashed a dead bear in the backseat of his car.
And
Our military service.
He goes on from there to lay out a bunch of things. And that's some of the higher quality video from that New Hampshire speech. We're going to talk more about that in the next segment because the criticism continues with Pritzker's rhetoric that he used. But obviously, Pritzker has, even during the first Trump administration, been very critical, butting heads with the administration. And now a second non-consecutive term, we see that again. Obviously, there's been a lot of speculation that Pritzker's aiming to run for higher office, but others looking at the first 100 days of the Trump administration differently. Illinois GOP chairman Kathy Salvi, I connected with her yesterday, and she said that, listen, Republicans are actually the ones with the solutions to all of what ails not just the United States, but also a state like Illinois.
Well, the Democrats, they don't have a plan. They don't have a platform. And what they'd be good to do is get red-pilled and come on board with this administration and these common sense solutions that will usher in this golden age. And this is just not words. We've had the most successful first 100 days of any administration, certainly in my lifetime. Republicans offer solution, and that's why our party is the working man and woman's party. And people are listening, and this is why President Trump has that sky-high popularity. So I'll tell you, the best thing the Republicans could do is just the Democrat dead-end policies. They can't get their act together, and we in Illinois are first-case examples of that. So if you want to have a new horizon, then try the Republican solutions. Lower taxes, less government regulation, encroachment in our lives, and let families raise their kids. Let families determine, moms and dads, what's in the best interest of their children. These are Republican solutions, and that's why President Trump was resoundingly elected in November.
And we'll hear more from Kathy Salvi in the next segment. Talk to her about the governor's rhetoric used at that New Hampshire speech. So stay tuned for that here on the live show. Catch the other segment if you're watching this after the fact. But maybe there's just heightened criticism from leading Democrats like Pritzker, like Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, because of something like this: strengthening and unleashing America's law enforcement to pursue criminals and protect innocent citizens. It's an executive order that was signed yesterday by the president, and goes through and talks about the issues at hand, tasking the attorney general to create mechanisms to provide legal resources and indemnification for law enforcement officers who unjustly incur expense and liabilities for actions taken during the performance of official duties. So almost you've got some immunity that the president's looking for in this executive order. It also talks about empowering state and local law enforcement, getting some federal resources where they need to be, using national security assets for law enforcement, and then this one's interesting, holding state and local officials accountable. And maybe this is going to rub some people the wrong way. The Attorney General shall pursue all necessary legal remedies and enforcement measures to enforce the rights of Americans impacted by crime and shall prioritize prosecution of any applicable violations of federal criminal law with respect to state and local jurisdictions whose officials willfully and unlawfully direct the obstruction of criminal law, including by directly and unlawfully prohibiting law enforcement officers from carrying out duties necessary for public safety and law enforcement, or B, unlawfully engage in discrimination of civil rights violations under the guise of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives that restrict law enforcement activity or endanger citizens. So it goes on from there. Is there a enforcement note there to hold local officials accountable? I mean, we saw the judge out of Colorado that was essentially charged with obstruction because of the issue of letting a illegal alien out and not allowing ICE to apprehend them inside a courthouse instead of, out in the parking lot where they had to chase them, and could have gotten pretty ugly. So we'll be watching that. Of course, the president's got, a rally he's going to be holding in Michigan. But there's some other things that, the president, promises made, promises kept, they say. But the criticism of, why haven't we seen lower prices yet? The president did say he was going to end the war between Russia and Ukraine on day one. He said he was going to end the war between, the Hamas terrorists and Israel on day one. Those things haven't happened yet. We may have seen some lowering of some prices and some cooling of inflation, but then you get the tariffs involved and the stock market's going crazy. So a lot of people, will point to some of that, the economics of it, and say the president hasn't kept his promise. But then, obviously, the White House is leaning heavily into border security. But one thing that was asked yesterday of the White House press secretary dealt with the Second Amendment.
Is there any ongoing efforts for national reciprocity so we can carry in all 50 beautiful states?
This is something the president talked about on the campaign trail for sure. We need Congress to do it. But the president will always support our law-abiding gun owners, and as you mentioned, is a ardent supporter of the Second Amendment. It's more important now than ever as we see violent crime rates in our inner cities. I've said this repeatedly over the past 4 years. The Second Amendment was never more important than when we had an illegal immigrant crime epidemic spiking in this country. Law-abiding Americans have a constitutional right to defend themselves, and the president absolutely supports that. But to national reciprocity, we do need Congress's help on that one.
So will Congress actually act on it? We've talked about that in the past. When is that going to happen? Not sure, because you also have the tax cuts that the president wanted to make permanent. Haven't seen that come to fruition yet. No tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, I think was something else he wanted. He's also talked about no taxes on loans for vehicles that are manufactured in the United States. Some of these things, obviously, we're only 100 days in. It takes a while to come together, but clearly there's going to be some people celebrating, others criticizing the first 100 days of President Donald Trump's second non-consecutive term. I'm Greg Bishop. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. Join us each and every weekday morning here as we break things down for you to get your day started with Illinois in Focus, only with the center square.